Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to all the siblings here joining us and all of those who are joining us at this moment or sometime later on in the future or near future here as well too, to engage us in our continuous conversations about how men and masculine folks and male identified folks are currently navigating their lives around current events and how we are sort of moving through life as men and masculine folks with the understanding of wanting to elevate gender and queer equity within our lives and within communities' lives, right? And some of the challenges that we may face. So that's just a brief nutshell of these conversations. And as this is a continued platform for all of us and for those of you who are participating with us to continue the conversations in your own community and with the male identified folks in your own lives. This is our 8th conversation. And we thought that today we really are honored to have Brandon join us. He's another person who he'll share a little bit more about himself, but he's a part of the Men and Masculine Folks Network as well too. And so we're really honored for him to join us in these conversations. And obviously Ed is not here as well today, but he sends his regards to everybody as well too. So I'll let my siblings here again introduce themselves.
Well, hey everybody, my name is Sean Hayes. Pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm up in Duluth, Minnesota. Just grateful, experiencing some gratitude, being here with all of you again.
Hello everyone, my name is Felix Martinez. My pronouns are he, him, and his, reporting from Eagan, Minnesota. Super happy and thankful to be here around you guys.
My name is Roderic Southall, pronouns he, him, reporting from North Minneapolis.
And greetings, everybody. I'm Brandon Jones. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm reporting from Woodbury, Minnesota, even though I do work all over the Twin Cities area. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation and being a part of many more.
Thank you. And as always, again, my name is Pheng, using he, him, his, and I am in Coon Rapids today. Typically, I'm over in St. Paul, but today I'm over here at my mother-in-law's. So that's where I'm doing this from. And as always, we appreciate Austin for joining us and doing the technical background support for us. So much appreciations to you, Austin. So in light of the sort of atmosphere and environment in some ways that we're all in at this moment, because the holidays are around the corner. We just, for some of us, celebrated a good meal last week. For those who participated in that or participated in the decolonization of that as well too, meaning the not celebrating of that, but like being really intentional about understanding what actually took place during Thanksgiving and what happened on this land 200-300 years ago, right? So going along with that theme, I thought that we could have our conversation really around like how we are as men and masculine folks around gratitude. How do we live with gratitude? How are we in relationship with gratitude? How does gratitude show up in our lives, show up in your life? What do you do with gratitude? What does gratitude say to you? How do you express it? How do you practice it? And really exploring that and exploring how you yourself are living with gratitude. Because oftentimes, I think a lot of times in our socialization to be men and to be male and to be masculine, we often don't think about gratitude or appreciation in many ways. We often take things for granted. Many of the small things are done for us, or we expect things to be done for us. And so I think it's worth a conversation with the holidays coming up for us to really explore that. So those are sort of the prompt questions. And as always, it's organic and it's free fluid, and really share with us what gratitude means, looks like, is expressed, practiced. Gratitude.
Hello, everyone. I can probably start. Gratitude for me is a way to express to my loved ones, the people around me, how thankful I am for those things that they do every day. Sometimes, like Penn mentioned, something we give for granted, having a plate of food on our table. Obviously that's not just our family. There's people behind, in the fields working for that. So there's so many things to be grateful, to be thankful, to be alive. But sometimes we don't see that, and as men, sometimes it's really hard to show up your feelings, to tell your friends, to tell your loved ones you love them. And when it's love is a word that's so important and we should use more often, but uh, we should be more thankful. We see it in the youth. We're all going through difficult times right now, and by being grateful, we can remember people that they're loved, that we care about them, that maybe we don't talk to them all the time, but we're there for them, and a way to support each other. We live in a world that right now is really harsh, and we're all going through difficult times. Sometimes to hear from someone that you're loved, that you have someone there to support you, to be for you, it could be very, very, very good. So for me, being grateful is something that I still learning, try to be more grateful, just remind everybody the importance, and to show it to your youth and to, our friends, remind them that, we all have a goal in life. We all have things to do, and we all go through difficult times, but that word love and being grateful is very important.
Gratitude. At first, I was like, why does that word make me feel uncomfortable? Um, um, and then I thought, well, maybe it doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. And then I thought, that I probably, that it's easy for me to say something to people, and it's less easy for me to get it, if you will, for someone to say it to me. And I kind of, when people show gratitude to me, I kind of feel like, stop. And they probably feel the same way when I'm giving them gratitude, but it doesn't register, right? Because you want to show your appreciation. But I think more than that, additionally, one of the things that I think that can happen with my sort of response about being a little bit uncomfortable is that I'm not sometimes specific in my gratitude to people. I'm like, yeah, good job, or thanks, as opposed to being real specific about what I'm thankful or grateful for them for doing, right? So it helps me keep some distance, if you will, I think. So I think I could probably work on being more specific, which would probably make it, for me, coming from me, more genuine, as opposed to what my parents said was good manners.
It's a really good perspective from both, Felix and Roderic so far. For me, I have a very interesting dynamic when it comes to gratitude. For me to receive gratitude from others makes me extremely uncomfortable. So when you said that, I chuckled because I'm like, yep, that's me. And I don't know if that's a personality trait or how I was raised or what, but that's just where I'm at. And I've always kind of been there where people say, oh, thank you for helping me with that. Thank you for doing that. It makes me, I'm just kind of one of those people that are like, thanks, but I don't need the thanks. And I think I've been conditioned to really show my version of gratitude through actions and not always through emotions, connections, or words. It's like, let me do this because I appreciate you or I appreciate what you did back to me, so I'm returning favor. And it's not always just the presence or just being there. And that's a place of growth that I think a lot of masculine folks have to kind of sit with, because I think, especially in this very Europeanized Western kind of culture that we're in, you know, our gratitude is we get gratitude by rewards, by the things that we accomplish. But we have to do well. You know, good enough isn't just enough to get gratitude. It's like you have to be the best. You have to excel to actually be appreciated and be seen as an idol or somebody who actually is significant. And I think that a piece of me as well, being kind of you know engulfed in this culture, is like I don't deserve that credit for that little thing I did. You know, that wasn't anything major. And I think a lot of people who develop into the in this space of masculinity, that's kind of how we're conditioned. Is we have to be the trailblazer or the top person to really not appreciate gratitude, but to deserve it. And I think that that's a huge struggle for many of us.
I think just naming, yeah, I thank you for naming, I think, the discomfort. First off, I want to say that because I was also feeling that and couldn't really figure out why. But it's like, listening and hearing the feedback that all of you are sharing, it's like, yeah, there's so much that I do resonate with in what you all have shared. And I think for me, it's just so oftentimes gratitude is just not on my radar. And I think, Brandon, what you brought up about like the culture that we live in, this Western society that's just always about more, bigger, productivity, and just keep going, doing all the things. And we rarely take the time to pause and to really sit with all of the blessings and gifts that we have, whether that's in our lives, our families, our communities, the work that we do, and then really thinking about all of the people that, there's just so many that I can think of that I'm so grateful for, who have had major impacts in my life, and also who have just helped with small things that, may seem insignificant to someone else who doesn't maybe understand context or whatnot, but it's just like every day we have these opportunities to pause and be grateful. And yet, how often am I doing that? Not very often, on Thanksgiving, with the complicated nature of that holiday. I know for our family here, it was just myself, my wife, and our toddler. And we had a conversation about that, about, what is it that we're thankful for when we're saying a prayer before we're eating this meal? Who are we thanking? Are we thinking about, thanking the land where this food came from and the people who gathered it and harvested it? And there's just so many layers, that I think we easily skip over.
Yeah, I think that what you all have lifted up in terms of that deep gratitude piece and place, which is like connected to our being and connected to our soul, quote unquote, to the gut place of who we are as men and masculine folks, is a place I think we haven't fully explored yet, as what Brandon had mentioned, and haven't looked at yet. I, for myself, understand that, and I know I do things like Roderic does too, of like, thank you, great. But like, what does that really actually mean deep down, right? In terms of like building that interconnectedness or connection to another being, especially to another male identified person, right? What does that say? Because then like that connection, then does it then lead to me building and fostering an intimate relationship with that person? Obviously, then that puts me into this place of my own places of homophobia, and that I have to actually look at and pay attention to. And so I was just thinking about that as you all were sharing there. And then I think the other part of it that is coming to my mind is I wonder, like, um, for those men who are often in the margins, quote unquote, who have identities that are not often deemed to be a part of the dominant power structures in this society, like how we as men and masculine folks actually navigate and think about gratitude, and is our response the response where you all shared, right? I know Ed's not here, but like Ed would be like, it would be good to really have that conversation with Ed as well too, to really get his perspective. Not that he represents all cisgender straight men in this world, but being that we are in relationship with him, it might be good to really just ask him. And because I think that it would, in some ways, very different, because I have experience, as many of you may have experienced, this place of like, I deserve, like this I deserve gratitude, or you should just be thankful that I'm here, sort of a place that I've seen as well too, when we are in places of power and privilege as male identified folks, you know, and I know that that shows up in my life often as well too. And I know that a lot of the queer folks and the women folks in my community often have that hesitation of accepting gratitude, of like saying that, oh, I should be appreciated. No, don't thank me for this because I should just be doing this, sort of a deal. So I wonder how that applies for those of us who are quote unquote in marginal communities or have marginal identities that are not often a part of the dominant quote unquote stories that we hear, right? So I'm just pondering those questions in my head at this moment, and struggling to understand like the deeper sense of gratitude here.
That made me wonder if I am equitable in my in who I show gratitude to, like you were saying. Makes me wonder if I meter it out more quickly, to like I'm thinking of like mothers and sisters of mine, or if I kind of expect them to do things that are thoughtful for me, and so I just, you know, I'm like so it puts me in that position of like, oh, of course, you are doing this because you're supposed to. What thanks do I need to give you? What gratitude do I need to have? Makes your comments made me think of that and wonder, how would I measure that, right? Or just that I should be more mindful of it, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a really. Go ahead, Roderic.
I was just going to say that we see you, can't hear you, but then.
Yes, I was muted. I think that's a really interesting perspective, even for myself too. Like, I don't think that I've been able to measure who I give gratitude towards or not. I will admit that I am probably a lot harder on males that I'm closer to, or male identified folks versus non-male identified folks. Um, I tend to have a different type of expectation when it comes to being like productive or taking care of yourself, or being um, kind of self-sufficient, so to say. And I wonder if that's a part of my own masculinity journey, is figuring out, what is that? Like, why do I expect that they could just figure it out, but I have uh this kind of expectation of myself that, well, if this person who identifies as female or as a woman, they might need my help more than this person who doesn't. And does that have to deal with gratitude per se, or is that my expectation of who I am in this society and what I'm supposed to offer? So that is a very interesting concept to kind of play out. And when you use the word measure, that's what made me think of that, as I started to think of, how do I respond to people? They may be the same age, they might do like similar things, but I probably have a different response to both of those individuals just based on how they appear from a gender standpoint.
Yeah, I agree with both, and I think that's due to those gender roles, stand in the community, like the expectations of those, women bringing the food to the table, and just because of that, we don't think in being saying thanks for that, and that expectation causes probably so much harm, and because I think we need to be grateful. We need to remind that people that what they do is meaningful to us. Not see it as, that's your role. You need to do it. Just do it. So I think that's something that we forget to do, and there's so many ways we can show gratitude. Doesn't need to be with thankful, be, showing with helping with with those chores, helping when you're not expected to be helped, helping. So that's something that we need to keep in our mind, and because people appreciate that, like like you guys mentioned before, nobody like to be thankful, to feel, people don't like to feel that gratitude, because most of the time we do it from our heart. We're not doing things expecting people to be thankful to us. And in my experience working in the nonprofit in the past, for example, as uh, like a hot approved counselor, working in finances, sometimes you see people trying to buy you gifts when you really see that these people struggle in their life. Sometimes they don't have the money to, you know, to pay their rent, but they still trying to show gratitude, buying you, a cupcake, buying you something, and you say, no, 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 I'm not, I cannot accept anything because I can get in trouble. But people show it every day, and I think it's a nice, beautiful gesture, and we need to be, need to appreciate it. But it's difficult. It's difficult to show it. It's difficult to accept it, but it's also needed. It's also needed as a reminder that we're humans, that we have feelings, and to create a world that with more compassion, with more love. But yeah, I agree. It's difficult to show, especially like Brandon said, from man to man. But I think we need to start breaking that, in order to create a different world and create change.
Yeah, I
Like, how
think
do you break
about.
it?
Oh, you were asking how do you break it? That's Roderic's question, I think, right? You're on mute, Felix.
I'm sorry. How I break that? How I break the Well, I think that goes from person to person. In order to start, it is thinking more in deep. You know, Putting that people situation. To understand where that come from. As a man, you need to realize that the harm that we cause. Sometimes with our behaviors, and sometimes putting ourselves in their position, it make us realize, okay, where that coming from. Sometimes we even see people taking advantage of that. That you're very, you give him everything you can, and then you see that maybe they say bad things about you. And when you get in situations like that, you're like, okay, should I keep helping that person? Of course, I will keep him helping just because it came from my heart. I don't do it expecting something. But sometimes there's situations that you've been, I'm pretty sure everybody have been, that you get, a negative reaction from that person that you've been helping. So how I break it, do it from my heart, keeping it from my heart, keep helping regardless. No matter how little it is. But as a man, putting myself in their situation, and thinking that the best I can in my, do my, how I can do it the best way I can. I think that's the way I break it. But I am perfect? No. I show gratitude all the time? No, because I'm told you sometimes I give it for granted. But that's the importance of this conversation, just to remind us that we need to be grateful, and to understand also that all the different points of view. So hopefully I answered that question, Roderic.
I think along the similar, lines about like to what you were sharing there, Felix. I was thinking about like, does does gratitude then help foster empathy, or does empathy then help foster gratitude? Right? Like, what what's the pairing and what's the matching of, like, is it one before the other, um, or whatnot? And I say that because so many of the men folks that I work with who've committed harm, particularly sexual violence harm and domestic violence harm, we do a lot of conversations and education around empathy and getting them to understand empathy. And in a deeper way, right? Not in a way in which they're looking for a person to apologize to them or for them to seek forgiveness, but in a way in which they actually understand what the other person is actually going through, right? And it's like a really hard thing, I think, that I've seen in working with that particular group of men and those particular men. And I think that at times, I know I struggle with the empathy part of it as well, that then could take away the gratitude piece or could make the gratitude even more profound if I actually understand the empathy piece a little bit more. So I'm wondering about that, and I'm pondering about that at this moment as we're having this conversation around gratitude. And being with gratitude isn't just about, like, I think the surface pieces that we were mentioning, but it's really these deeper pieces where we may find ourselves to have tension with gratitude. And I think that that tension is hard for me at times when somebody has done something wrong to you, to then give gratitude to that person who's done harm to you, right? Or who's hurt you. Um, and how do we navigate that in that moment as we think about living daily with gratitude in a way that brings us some peace and some comedy in the midst of the chaos. And I wonder that about that for um, some young men, particularly the young men who are at risk, who have a lot of experiences and exposure to violence within their own homes or to the violence in the street and in the community. And I wonder about that uh, because I've seen that uh, with the friends that I have as well too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the empathy piece is hard, especially when harm's been done. Because when you feel like you've been wronged, what ends up happening is you look inward and it's like, how do I protect myself? So for me to give gratitude for someone else when all this injustice has been taken upon me, it's a very hard thing to do. When I think about young people who've been victimized in the community or even in their households, that's a very difficult lesson for them to even understand, especially because their brains are still developing. They're still developing those social emotional intelligence skills, and they're not quite there yet of understanding it. And things become very selfish, so to say, not in a malicious way, but just in a protection kind of survival kind of mode way. And that can be very difficult to try to even model gratitude to a young person who they've been through so much that's been difficult. They're like, well, that's what Brandon does. That's not how my life is. And they might just see it as something outside of themselves versus something that they possess as well.
I know for myself, I'm thinking about this empathy piece. I really like that you connected this because, yeah, it's easy to sort of think about surface type issues, thinking about gratitude. And I know for myself, it's very easy for me to just be so wrapped up in what I'm doing. I think, like Brandon, what you said about like the young people, I think just generally for most of us, like we're focusing on what we're doing, what we got to get done, all of the things throughout the day. And I was just reminded of throughout my relationship or our marriage, my wife and I have like worked to sort of do some of, like, we had talked about gender roles and those things, and we had sort of said, okay, I hate doing dishes, you do dishes, like we sort of had separated those things out. And this was a while ago, and we've sort of been plugging along. And at one point, my wife Amy said to me recently, hey, I did all of those dishes and you didn't even notice. And it was like, she was asking for that gratitude, and just how easy it is for us to get into that mode of just not looking up. And then then my like irritation at her saying that, I'm sorry I didn't think to thank you for doing the thing that you said that we agreed you were going to do. And then, yeah, thinking about bringing in this empathy piece, it's like, how many times have I been in that same exact position where I've done 6 loads of laundry all weekend and she hasn't noticed or hasn't made a comment or thanked me, and sort of those expectations, thinking about, folks who are not identified as masculine and men folk who just, the expectation is that you do it and that's just what you do. And yet when I do those things, I want to be seen, I want to be recognized. And what is that? Why is that, first off? But it gives me a chance to really like sit with that and think about, okay, I can understand the hurt that feels to not be seen, to be feeling invisible when you're doing all of this work, whether it's in the home or the community. And so, it's just making me think about all the people who I, don't necessarily lift up, because it's just like, this is what we're doing. This is how we've been doing it. And like, how can we interrupt that and actually lift people up, and like maybe like that rejuvenates us and gets us feeling like, okay, I am seen, I am a part of this community, I am valued for the things that I'm bringing.
Yeah, I think you bring up so many places that I think many of us has brought up in this conversation about us, as how we, or I as a masculine and male identified person, navigate around gratitude, particularly for those we're in relationship with, that we know we take a lot of things for granted, right? Like what Felix talked about. Uh, and we don't actually do that emotional connecting that Brandon was sharing earlier, but we do it in action. And then we just expect that, oh, well, I did it this way, and you should just know that because I bought you this thing, you should just be okay with that. Or, or, well, I bought you this car, or I did this thing over here. So it's an outward thing, and without even visualizing like that's us showing appreciation or gratitude, but making the assumption that people should just know that by us doing that act and that behavior, that should then be taken as gratitude already. But I think that the other portion of it is that because we've been so socialized to be disconnected from that emotion too, that emotion of gratitude as well too in our own lives, that connecting with it is a place of tension, and being able to fully connect our gut and our soul and the deep parts of who we are as male identified folks to gratitude. I think I could see that even in this conversation, right? Where we're all like, ooh, we understand it up here on the surface, but like in the deeper pieces, it's like all of us are still struggling with like, how are we being with it in the deeper pieces within us, right? Because I see that all of us are having, to me too, as well, we have more questions than we have actually answers to, which is really good, because it just means that as men and masculine folks, we've probably not fully explored this with other men and masculine folks in our own lives as well too, as we're doing it here.
That piece about we have questions is, I always kind of laugh when I think of sort of masculine folks and questions, and it reminds me of in my generation when I grew up, the story of the husband driving around and around and around, not asking for directions, and so I'm when you said that, I thought, yep, that's kind of me. Going around and around this question, and only here really asking that question of like, hey, how do we do this?
So I have a question since we're in the question space. Can we think of any models of men or masculine folks who've shown gratitude, whether in movies or cartoons, comic books, anything that we've come across in our lifetime where we're like, that's a man that showed good gratitude? Like, where do we see it? Because I'm kind of reflecting on my end over here. I'm like, I don't really know. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen little instances within my family here and there, but like, if I look at the media influences that I have, I don't know if there is an actual masculine character that I could think of that showed gratitude, like in any movies or anything. So I don't know. Any thoughts from anyone else?
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is like without any attachment, without sex being a part of it, without having a gift in return, without having a favor being in return. Like, right? So as you were asking that question, I was like, ooh, and I think, and I was like, yeah, because a lot of it has attachment. There's an expectation that there's something attached to that gratitude as well too. The superheroes that we were talking about a couple weeks ago, being the superhero, there's an attachment to it. You get, as the straight heterosexual cisgender superhero gets the pretty woman at the end. So I don't know. Is there without that attachment?
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing out there, to tell you the truth. I think my daughters, now they're a little bit older, that I'm not that attached to see cartoons with my kids anymore. But yeah, that's a great idea. I think we should patent that idea right now before someone take advantage and make these new cartoons where they show empathy, all those positive, uh, you know, behaviors and attitude. But yeah, I think that's one of the challenges, that we don't see that on TV. We don't see those role models in movies anymore. Well, not anymore. We don't see them in in movies, and the importance and the impact that those characters have in our kids, in the youth, in us as adults. So in order to start changing those unhealthy behaviors. So yeah, I think we're lacking of that. Thank you for bringing that, Brandon, because something that sometimes we don't think that much. We don't take our time to do it, and we're lacking that, and we need to probably put that out there, so hopefully other people can take that idea to a new level.
So I have a close one, and this one's probably one that we all miss. But if anyone remembers the first Home Alone movie, and if you remember, I forgot Macaulay Culkin's character's name in the movie, but at the end of the movie, he's pretty much got caught by the bad guys. The house is flooding, etc. And then the old man, who was the scary old man throughout the whole movie, comes in and like hits the guy with the shovel and saves the day. But then I had to think about it. After that happened, there wasn't any gratitude. He just kind of was like the Scrooge who just like and just walked away. He just went back to his house. So even there, we don't even have that. I mean, he couldn't even accept that he saved the day. So that because he didn't have to save the day, he could have just stayed that grumpy old man that we've seen throughout the whole film. But he saved the day, and he just kind of was like, and went back went back to his home and celebrated the holidays. But it's like even then it's like we have this narrative of where do we see it, which to me what that says to me is I have to do a better job modeling it for the people who look at me as someone, or the people who are watching me as a man, as I have to model it, because I'm thinking of all the cartoons and shows that my daughters watch. I don't think they see. I know they see me like thank their mom and give her hugs and kisses, but that's attachment. That's my wife, right? I feel obligated to do those things. But like, where else do they see it? I don't think that they do, which kind of scares me now that I'm saying this out loud.
Well, that's what I was thinking about too, is just, I mean, even in like, pop culture or whatever, whether it's music, movies, TV, whatever. And then I was also thinking about like, yeah, who are the people, the men in my life, like that did I witness this growing up, like this culture of gratitude, or is that even like a thing? And I can remember like moments, but I don't think that it's like we said, like if we don't have an example, right, then it's like we're sort of having these conversations, right, where like all the questions are coming up, and then we have to then do the work to sit with those questions and to, like Brandon is saying, like think about, okay, well, what in my life can I change? Because I think for all of us here on this call, like we have people who look to us as examples, whether we feel like we're great examples or not. Yeah, it's just like there's so much possibility there, and it almost feels like, you know, we're sort of starting from scratch if we don't have people to learn from.
I agree. And then we have to, I think that that's part of like the building and creating and the co-creation that we can all do when we are able to find and generate these kinds of conversations or spaces amongst men and masculine folks is we could do the exploration, right? That feels quote unquote comfortable and yet uncomfortable, safe and yet unsafe at the same time, and be able to do that push and pull with each other and challenging with each other as well, to then say what is the practice, what is the practice that and the intentional practice, right? The intentional practice of ensuring that what I am doing is from a deep gratitude place, like what Felix is talking about. And I have no attachment to the reward or what I'm going to get in return. Because I think my socialization was that I was always going to get something in return. If I did good behavior, if I behaved the way that men and boys are supposed to behave, then I would get rewarded, right? And I would get something, whether it be candy, whether it be sex, you know, from my partner, whether it be whatever the case may be. And so I think the thing is, how do I do it, and how do I continue to do it in a way where I do not have an attachment to it, and let go of that attachment, let go of that reward part of it, and be able to ensure that that's a spoken, visible thing, and it's not just shown to the folks who are looking and in relationship with me, particularly the young men and boys, but like, and my own two boys that I'm raising, but actually make it visible for them to be able to not only see, but hear, feel, touch, and taste, using all their senses, right? Using all their senses to actually experience that gratitude. That would be my challenge to me.
Well, and that makes me think about, you know, like we have a 2-year-old kid in our house, and like that's one of the things that I'm, you know, that me and my wife are always saying. You know, we give her a cookie or whatever. Okay, what do you say? You know, and she knows to say thank you. You know, in her little way. It's more like thank. You know, I don't know how she says it, but it's adorable. But then it's like, yeah, it makes me think. Okay, well, what is the purpose of us, you know, because Amy has even said to me, you know, she really doesn't understand. I mean, whether it's thank you or please or sorry, you know, she's not in an age where she can really understand that yet. But it's just, yeah, it makes me think about all these sort of things I grew up thinking were important, you know, like around, I don't know, politeness and, you know, you don't want to be rude to someone. And you know, thinking about that, it's like, gosh, I don't know that I've ever really connected deeper than that when I'm saying thank you to someone for something, whether they're just handing me a plate of food or they've helped me on a work project. Yeah, it just makes me think I want to spend some more time reflecting on that. Like what can come of this? How can I like feel a deeper connection to like the thing I'm grateful for, but more so the person that I'm grateful for.
So
Yeah.
this,
Oh, go ahead, Roderic. I apologize.
no, I apologize. um, so this makes me think a little bit about this book I read called, I think, The Empathy Exams. And it was apparently one of the things that students who are going into medicine are tested on is their ability to empathize with patients as a way to arrive at a better diagnosis, right? And so as we were talking about this and talking about sort of being mindful and specific and deliberate about being grateful, it made me wonder sort of how it would change our relationships. You know, in those moments, we talk about people feeling sort of seen and appreciated in that moment, how that sort of, that domino changes what I would know about people, right? And what I would begin to see in people, in which, you know, sometimes you have sort of, you know, years in a relationship, but you really have always been at a distance because your politeness was a space you shared, right? As opposed to really being very mindful and intentional about sort of being grateful for the thing that that person brings to your life or to the situation. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. In my case, I was thinking right away, you know, every time I go out, I always try to bring something to my partner, you know, some candy, something, you know, just to show kind of added some type of gratitude, you know, for what she does every day. But sometimes, you know, with the monotony, I've been with my partner for more than 20 years. So sometimes we forget to maybe, you know, create something special, something different that we don't do all the time. At dinner, I'm terrible cooking, so I don't know if that'll be well taken by my wife, but I can try and do my best. But you know, sometimes we need to maybe think on that, and you know, not necessarily just do it every day, but you know, once in a while, just show it in a way that there's more meaningful. You know, same way with our friends. You know, just go and take them for a coffee. You know, there needs to be a specific reason. Just you know, just a reminder that we're thankful for listening to us, for being there for us. You know, people in your office, the people that work, you know, in front. You know, in the register, people that clean the cards at Walmart, you know, all that people, you know, do their job and they care. So sometimes when we think in gratitude, we need to, you know, do it in a way that we can, yeah, remind those individuals that, yeah, they're important, but with their loved ones that sometimes we give it for granted, just do special things once, once in a while, because with monotony, like I said, with my marriage is sometimes we forget about that, and you know, after 20 years is, you know, you need to be more and more creative.
I appreciate that. And it also brought another question up, as like, in this, I've sort of been framing this in my mind under normal circumstances. And so what does gratitude look like in a pandemic when we're not actually, with those people? And I was thinking about, ways that I've tried to sort of be intentional and reach out to people. And it's, it's like a Facebook message or it's a video call or something. And so I'm curious if y'all have thoughts, more about that. It's like, in a time where connection feels even further apart, like with the technology and stuff, it's so hard to connect. And so then how can we show a deeper thing than what comes across on a screen or over the phone?
I do think that it's in how we stay connected and stay in the relationship with the individuals, right? In the staying connected and being with them and being able to actually, like, going back to what we were sharing earlier, being able to see and hear them and understand them, right? I know that for me, what I've found to be true is the more that I could do the letting go that I was talking about earlier, uh, and experience gratitude on that deeper level, the more that, going to Roderic's point and question there, is the more that I do feel a sense of not only closer connection to other people, and seeing other people's in a different way that I've not seen them before, but I also understand myself and see myself moving in a different way as well too, in relationship to myself, which then expands to other people, right? And I find myself to have feel less loneliness, less isolation, and to be feeling more fulfilled, and to have a deeper meaning about my own life with regards to enjoyment and joy and pride, and that pride and that joy isn't like attached to those gratitude or ways of being with other people, but from within my own self rather than seeking it from elsewhere. Because I was taught all my life, similar to some and all of us here, as a male identified person, is gratitude should be from outside and others should be making me happy, and I should not be alone, and people should keep me company, and people should know when I'm lonely and they should just come, right? And like sort of turn off that loneliness for me quickly. And then when I can't seek it here, I have a choice with the privilege that I have to go and seek that, to go and seek to not be alone with this other person, or to go and find love somewhere else because this person isn't loving me the way that I want to be loved, or this person isn't giving me the kind of gratitude that I'm expecting, and that I deserve. So I'm going to go find it somewhere else. And so I have a choice in finding and dropping people and discarding and disposing people at times. But I think what I found is like the more that I could appreciate gratitude and be with gratitude, the more that I actually hold on to those relationships closer, and they become more scarce. Like people become more scarce. They no longer become disposable. And I don't wish, like in my teen years or in my young adult years, like that person should die in hell. Like not wanting to burn that bridge, right? But like, oh, that person should still live and they deserve to live. But it takes a while to get to this place, I think, and even continue to struggle to work through it, of that, right? To work through the tension with gratitude when somebody's harms you, and to sort of appreciate where they're at in that moment and to let that go as well too. And so I know I still struggle with that, but I think that that's what I've found for myself.
You know, throughout this conversation, I think I've come to kind of a conclusion for myself that the way that I've learned how to express gratitude as a man has been in the form of an exchange, and not necessarily just being what it is, just gratitude for things. Even though I am thankful, I don't always express it in ways that don't come attached to this exchange, this give and take exchange. So for me, this has been a good, almost like a self reflection exercise. Having this conversation with you all, it's like, how do I actually do gratitude? I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a nice, a nice guy, but maybe I still got some work. I ain't as nice as I think I am. But it's one of those things that like maybe I should start checking in on people more. Like people I haven't talked to in a while, old colleagues, friends, even though we might not be as close as we used to, just send them a text message. It is COVID, we're in this, we're gonna continue to be in this until who knows how long. And maybe that message is what they need, right? They might just need something just to say, oh, somebody thought about me. And it's not attached to let's hang out or let's hop on a virtual happy hour or anything like that. It's just, hey, you crossed my mind. Just want to say what's up, show some gratitude, appreciate you for just being a person. And that's, I think I'm gonna start actually incorporating that into like my weekly practices, just to reach out to a random person who I have their number saved in my phone, or somebody I connected with on social media that I just haven't heard from in a while. So yeah. So thank you all for this conversation today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Brandon, you stole my words. I was thinking the same thing, how we can continue doing that and reaching to more of our friends. I normally personally do it, with friends that maybe going through a difficult time, and I know they're going through a difficult time, and I just reach out them, send them a message saying how you doing. I hope you're doing fine. I'm sorry you lost, your loved one, etc. But we need to reach to more people and remind them that, you know, I try to do a lot of it with my close friends just through the COVID, through, you know, while we go in the pandemic right now, we're just playing dominoes online, and you put FaceTime on the computer. We start, you know, just getting together and having conversations. And just because, you know, there's stuff that we used to do in the past and now we don't do it anymore. You know, people can do it with cards, there's some board games, a lot of things you can do online to connect and show, you know, those people that you care, that, you know, you're there for them. And try to use technology, you know, to share a lot of that gratitude. But it's difficult. We forget that so much. And this is the time to start creating that habit of being more thankful. And like Brandon said, just maybe reaching to that people that we have on the phone that we haven't talked in a long time, long time, you know, just to tell them, hey, I hope you're doing well. I hope your family is doing good. And, you know, I'm here. You know, if you need me, I'm here. I think that's something that, you know, from this conversation, I'm gonna try to be, you know, more serious about it and try to do it more and utilize social media, because that's such a gift that we have right now, and we maybe not using it at their full potential.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines. It's like a new habit or like a new practice. That it's like, you know, I think for myself, I want to be like good at things right away. And it's like, okay, you know, this is going to take some time. This is going to take, I've spent what, 30-ish years of my life, you know, after I was like 3, you know, doing and being this way, you know, and like growth is always, I think, around the corner for me. So it's like, yeah, just thinking about the practice of being intentional and yeah, like just reaching out to say, hey, I see you, I miss you, you know, I'm thankful that you're in my life and I care about you, you know. And that, you know, it feels like it's like, oh crap, it's like this whole huge thing that I got to change in my life. And you know, to send a couple messages like that every day would probably take me 5 minutes or less, you know. So it's like, really, what is it, you know? Like I'm capable of building something up in my head where it's like, well, there's just no way that I can, you know, start doing this. And then I can actually, you know, come back and realize, well, yep, there are ways, you know, there are simple, small ways. You know, I was just reminded of my wife, Amy, used to do like a gratitude journal. She did that for a couple of years, where literally every day at the end of the day, she would write down something. And I was always like, wow, that's takes a lot of time. And, you know, like at the end of the year, she has this stack of notes. But what a cool thing, you know, at the end of that year, where she would go back and look and see all of these things. And, you know, not necessarily at the end of the year, but we could be doing that all of the time, you know, when we get to these low spots, or when something hard is going on, like think about all of the things and the people that we have in our lives. So, and grateful for conversations like these with y'all.
Roderic, do you have any last closing thoughts there?
Just that I think for me, it's you know, perfect practice makes perfect, they say, right? And that while sometimes we can get caught up in, oh, it's performative. Performative is practice, right? And so trying to untangle, trying to make sure I don't get stuck in that. Is it really authentic when I'm trying to practice and get it to be a habit, I think. And so that's what I would say this conversation is spurring me to want to sit with and be aware of and act on.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate this conversation and all of you for sensing and seeing our struggles with something so simple, something that is yet so simple but yet so complex and so nuanced. And so I think it is in that complexity that our lives become much more enriching and much more richer as we do the practicing that Roderic, you were talking about, and do the challenging in our own lives. So I continue that, and we continue these conversations every other Thursday, and hope that all of you who joined us in this conversation really take the time to actually dive deeply and really think about what does it mean to really be with gratitude in your own lives as a male identified or masculine person, and how you are not going to practice it, as Brandon says, as an exchange, but yet as something that is much more transformational in your own life, right? So I leave it to Sean to share any other logistics. But thank you.
Yeah, we just want to thank all of you here on the call. Gratitude to each of you, and to all of those who were able to watch us live or who are watching this after the fact. We're just really grateful for those of you who are connecting with us, who are resonating with the things that we're talking about during these kitchen table conversations. So thank you again for joining us on this 8th conversation that we've had together. We want to take just a minute to thank our philanthropy partners, as always, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota and the Women's Foundation for their support. And again, as Pheng said, we'll be back in 2 weeks on Thursday, December 17th. That's at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be live on our Facebook page, so make sure you like our page. Feel free to share these conversations. We would love to connect with more people. And again, you can check out any of our previous conversations on our YouTube channel, which is linked in the description of this video. So thank you again to all of you who were able to join us today, and we'll let everybody sign off. We'll see you next time.